There are some work meetings that probably could just be emails, and then there are some work meetings that are so important, it doesn't even matter what was said in them. 49ers had one of those on Saturday, and it was a big reason for their win on Sunday. And I'll tell you why it matters, even if the 49ers don't make the playoffs in 2024. What is good, everybody? Welcome to a very quick 49ers live stream here on the Gold Standard 49ers Podcast Network. I'm your host, Rob Stats Guerrera. Just wanted to hop on here after the win, rewatched the game yesterday, had some thoughts, wanted to share them with you. Vish is in India, so we are not doing an under review tonight, so there will be no under review, but Levin Black and I are going to do our NFL Week 14 recap show at around 5:30 p.m. Pacific time tonight. So we will do that. We'll be live on the channel. As for this show, wanted to talk about the meeting, right? The big meeting that the 49ers had that supposedly, got them all pumped up and ready to go for this game against the Chicago Bears to keep their very, very slim playoff hopes alive. If you missed it, Brock Purdy, Deommodore Lenoir, George Kittle were asked to speak by Kyle Shanahan on Saturday, and it really pumped up the team. After the game, George Kittle was asked, what was the message in that meeting?
The message was we need to play with more of a sense of urgency and play desperate, because you just haven't really sensed that. And I've been on teams where it felt like, was it 2 years ago we went on whatever, like 8-9 game win streak, whatever that was. And it literally felt like every play people were just scratching, clawing, and fighting for everything. And I'm not going to call anybody out. Like we've all done, not taking a play off, but just not fought our hardest on every given play. And that was kind of the message, guys, just put it all out there, because we have the players, we have the playmakers, we have the play call, and we have everything to win games. But we have to do it out of desperation. And when you're playing desperate and you're playing hey, if we don't win this game, our season potentially is over. That desperation fuels guys in different ways, and it's just how you take that and how you channel that energy. And I thought our guys did a great job of that today.
Thanks, George. So Kenny asked the question that I immediately wanted to have asked. Kenny says, quote, waiting until they're basically out of the playoffs to have some urgency is certainly a strategy. That was my question. Exactly, Kenny. What the hell took so long, right? How did we get to this point in the season where you're 5-7 going into the Bears game, basically all but eliminated, and now you decide to have this meeting? Where was this meeting after the Seattle loss, right? Where was it? Why didn't you do it when you were 5-5 and you lost another division game, your third division game? Shouldn't that meeting have happened then? I don't know. Maybe it could have if Brock Purdy wasn't hurt, right? Remember, Brock got hurt. He didn't play in that Green Bay game. Maybe they were going to have it then, but he didn't feel like he could speak because he was hurt. I don't know. That would be a fascinating question to have asked to the players, what took so long? But here was the other thought I had. Maybe it doesn't even matter for this season, because I think maybe the important part of this meeting was the fact, not that they had the meeting, but that who spoke up and who was asked to speak at the meeting. Remember, Brock Purdy was asked and Deommodore Lenoir was asked. One member of the offense, one member of the defense. What do they have in common? They either will just have signed or are going to sign big extensions with the team. Brock's going to get paid and Lenoir just got paid. And I think what we saw was an acknowledgement and an official sort of anointing by Kyle Shanahan of, you guys are the leaders now on your respective sides of the ball. Kyle Shanahan, 49ers 2.0, it's you guys that are leading the charge. I need you to do it. And that's why Kyle asked him, because whether they make the playoffs or not this year, them being the ones to speak up in the meeting, I know they weren't the only ones, but they were the headliners. I think that sends a message to everybody else in that locker room. There's a new sheriff in town. The new next wave of this team is here in a big way. And that may be the most important thing that happens this season for the 49ers. Just the acknowledgement and the fact that Brock is speaking up. When was the last time the quarterback was a leader on this team? Let's be honest. It really never happened in the Shanahan era. Jimmy Garoppolo, they were hiding Jimmy Garoppolo for so many games. When was the last time the quarterback was the guy for this team? Maybe that's the acknowledgement. that, hey, this is not the same old, right? Instead of Fred Warner telling people, you got to get in line and all that stuff, it's the quarterback of the team saying, hey, we have to pick it up. And Brock said last week, I'm the guy that can lead us out of this. I believe I'm the guy. Brock actually said that, and he demonstrated it. And then he went out on the field and helped the offense rack up 319 total yards in the first half and 24 points. So he didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk, which is obviously a huge part of selling yourself in an NFL locker room. So I think that may be big. I've talked about this year as being a possible transition year for the 49ers and about how they're going to have to move to this sort of next core and figure out who that is. I think Saturday and the game on Sunday was a sign that that may have happened, regardless of what happens the rest of this season. I think that's the big takeaway. When I heard George talk about that after the game, I think that was the takeaway. The fact that they couldn't muster that with the old guard talking about it, right? Because Fred's been talking about it all year about how it doesn't look right, and we know the standard and blah, blah, blah. And Kittle's been talking about it too, and Bosa's been talking about it. But those are the guys that have been here, right? They tried to rally the team, and they couldn't do it. Maybe the fact that it was new voices and new guys, and it was new guys holding old guys accountable may have helped. And of course, let's be real, playing the Bears helped too. Oscar Alfaro, YouTube channel member for 8 months, says, frankly, it's Kyle Shanahan being stubborn. Players do as told. What do you mean by that, Oscar? By the way, nice avatar. Very cool. Do you mean that Kyle never should have asked them earlier? Is that what you're saying? Because if that's the case, then I agree. I would like to know the timing of the Brock Purdy injury and how that played into it. But nonetheless, I think that's what you're saying. And if that is the case, I agree with you. Justin Smith says they knew after Seattle they had 2 really tough games, and it would have deflated them if they had had that meeting and still lost. That's an interesting strategy. Like, do you specifically time the meeting to play against a lesser opponent because you want that boost? But here's the thing. With the way the Niners had been playing before Sunday, they could have lost to anybody. It's why I thought they were going to lose, because they were giving the football away. They were getting stomped on the ground. They were giving the football away. They couldn't get leads, so other teams continued to run the ball, and they just couldn't stop it. Yesterday was the perfect game script for the 49ers. That's exactly how they want every game to go. Get the ball, score. Get the ball back, score again. Keep adding to the lead, and the run game becomes less and less and less of a factor for the opponent, and the pass rushers that they do have can rush the passer, and ultimately we saw that with Caleb Williams going down with, I think, 6 or 7 sacks in the game. All of a sudden, Leonard Floyd looks like he might not be totally cooked, and the Niners defense looks way better than it's looked in weeks, because that is the game script. That's how they're built to win. Offense puts pressure on you. Defense gets the beneficiary, the benefit of that with the pass rushers and the secondary, and they only have to worry about one dimension of the game. If the Niners can play like that offensively, their defense is going to look better and better and better, because, again, that's how they're built to, particularly if Bosa can come back and if Greenlaw can come back and be anything close to what he was. And if Talanoa Hufanga continues to play this way, because he was a major, major improvement over Jair Brown. Jair Brown was on special teams like that. He was immediately demoted. Think about that. Jair Brown got immediately demoted for a guy that's barely played this year and has one hand, because he has a club on one hand, so he can't even really catch the ball. So that tells you something too. Tanisha says, good morning, Rob and chat. Happy Victory Monday. Fire has finally been lit. I pray that the flames continue to burn. It is a Victory Monday. I've got my Victory Monday homage t-shirt on. If you want one, just click the link in the description of the episode. It'll take you right to the page. Get a little commission. Not going to lie, I would appreciate it if you would use that link. Valerie says, yes, Rob, that's the key takeaway from that for me. These two need to be the vocal leaders going forward. What kind of surprised me was the fact that they were like, yeah, Deommodore Lenoir is not a vocal guy. It's like, wait, what? He loves to talk trash. So I was really surprised to hear that, because he seems like a very, gregarious kind of guy, but he's going to have to develop into that. Jimmy Ward was that guy for the 49ers in this sort of first iteration of this winning team. Once they finally got their roster situated in 2019, Jimmy Ward was that vocal guy. They had Ward was the vocal guy in the secondary. They had Fred, obviously, being a vocal guy with the linebackers, and they had Eric Armstead was a vocal guy in the defensive line. This iteration of the Niners now finally, hopefully, has Lenoir in the secondary. Warner's still in the linebackers. And then who is it on the defensive line? They're trying to make Bosa into it. I don't know if he ever will be. They haven't really replaced Eric Armstead from that perspective. And we'll see if they do this offseason or who that can be in the years that go forward. So, yeah, I was surprised to hear that about Lenoir. Hopefully the beacons have been lit, right? Gondor called for aid. We'll see if Rohan will answer for any Lord of the Rings fans out there. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and look, maybe you think this is me taking a victory lap. I don't care if you do, but I'm just going to say it. Like, the league didn't look like they had Kyle Shanahan figured out yesterday, right? Didn't look like the team had folded up shop and not played hard for Kyle Shanahan. Didn't look like they had packed it in yesterday, right? When they racked up 319 yards in the first half and scored 24 points, and we're getting George Kittle wide ass open all day long and Juwan Jennings wide ass open all day long. That was the encouraging thing. It looked easy finally for the 49ers. It looked easy, and that's with no Ayuk and no Christian McCaffrey, right? I know Kyle's offense doesn't work without Christian McCaffrey, right? He needs all the Avengers to make it work. Not quite. Actually, they were kicking the hell out of people yesterday. That's what it's supposed to look like. And maybe Kyle was in a funk this year too, right? Maybe he was in a little bit of a slump. That can happen as a play caller. Maybe he's coming out of it too. And yeah, it might be too little too late. The Niners playoff chances actually went down yesterday, believe it or not. They went from like 9% to 8% because the rest of the NFC West did what they did. But maybe it's too little too late. We'll have to see. But they got a huge game coming up against the Rams on Thursday, a massive game. And, obviously they got some positivity now. That's all great. That's cool. Don't discount the return of Dre Greenlaw, assuming he comes back this week, which it's not locked in yet. They said they think so, but they're still going to take it slow with him. That's going to be fascinating. Greenlaw is the juice on the defense for sure. And you're at home, right? And that crowd is going to go nuts because they haven't seen Dre Greenlaw since the Super Bowl. That is going to be a lift for this team. He's going to be just absolutely out of his mind. Get ready for some borderline 15-yard penalties. Get ready for all of that. But it will be nice to see a little bit of juice. And I want to see the effect that he has on this defense. They have not really been able to generate turnovers. They got one yesterday, which was huge. D. Winters had a ball go right through his hands. That could have been a pick six, but they haven't really been generating turnovers. Dre Greenlaw can generate turnovers either with big hits or with interceptions himself. I'm fascinated to see the boost he gives this defense. And I'm not saying he's going to be Dre Greenlaw, of old, right? He's probably going to be a shell of himself, but just his presence and his attitude, I do believe will have a real effect. And I do believe that was something this team was sorely, sorely missing this year. Oh boy. Gabe Garoni, thank you so much for that donation. Gabe, I really appreciate that. That's tremendously generous. Says, Brock looked great with only one Avenger on the field. Number one, Deebo isn't even Agent Coulson. Dude, don't disrespect Coulson like that. I love my man, Phil Coulson. But I get what you're saying. That was the most encouraging part of yesterday. Win or lose, I want to see more of that with the rest of the schedule if they pay Brock. Your biggest weapons were Kittle and Juwan Jennings, and Isaac Guerendo chipped in a nice way. But I said this on our instant reaction show. It was like Kyle Shanahan heard all our complaints, and he was finally like, all right, fine, I'll listen to you. And that was the encouraging thing. They got the ball to Jennings, especially in the red zone. They drew up designed plays for George Kittle. Here's a couple screen passes. Here's a ball over the middle on 3rd and 7. And you just run down the field like a drunken rhinoceros, and that's exactly what George Kittle did. 6 catches on 6 targets for 151 yards. That was the encouraging thing. Kyle didn't lean on Deebo Samuel. He didn't just say, well, we'll give Deebo a bunch of screen passes and hopefully he'll figure it out. And hopefully that'll be our offense. That's not what he did. In fact, if you go back and watch, like I watched today, really when the offense bogged down is when Deebo Samuel touched the ball. He had 1 catch for 20 yards, I think it was, really early, where he ran a nice route and he came back to the ball to grab it in front of the defender. And it was just a nice play. And then after that, it was nothing. It was a whole bunch of nothing. There was a screen pass in the flat where he's got blockers in front of him. And I don't know if he's hurt or what the deal is, but the first guy brought him down, and the first guy never brings Deebo Samuel down. Never. I listened to a little bit of the 49ers Talk podcast with Matt Mayoko and Jennifer Lee Chan after the game. They didn't say it, but they said, hey, maybe Deebo's battling an injury that we don't know about, much like Fred Warner. And for Matt Mayoko to say that, and for Jennifer to say that and throw that out there, maybe that's their way of telling you that there is something wrong with Deebo Samuel that we don't know about. Remember, he did have pneumonia a little while ago, and I know he played like a week later, but that really does stick with you, and maybe that's contributing to his breathing and just him not being, 100%. I don't know. But it was the first time I had heard anybody suggest that. And again, they're not going to throw that out there just blindly speculating, right? They're in the locker room. They're there every day. Maybe there may be something to that. I don't know that there is. Again, I'm just saying it was not the same Deebo. And I went back and watched 2021 film. He was a different guy back then. He does not look like that guy. So maybe he is battling something. We'll have to see. But if he is, I hope somehow he can recover, because they could clearly use him, particularly on Thursday night. First of all, Deebo usually plays really well against the Rams. Second of all, it's a short week. You're not going to be doing like crazy game planning. Usually on Thursday night, the games come down to two things: who doesn't screw it up, and who's just stars be stars, right? Who just makes a physical play beyond the X's and the O's, breaks 3 tackles, makes a big play, breaks a tackle, reaches for a third down conversion, something like that, something beyond the X's and the O's on Thursday, particularly a Thursday night game between two teams in the same division, because they know each other so well. A couple other comments I want to get to. Thanks again, Gabe. That was a tremendous super chat. Wedge Antilles says Chicago played a lot of zone coverage. Brock eats zone all day. Teams can play man, can lock our wide receivers up. Yeah, maybe. I'm sure they didn't play zone every time. But you know what? Sometimes in man coverage, screen passes can work good too. So, again, I don't know how much of the damage was done against zone. I know that Jonathan Vilma was basically saying, like, the Bears are doing what they always do, and we know what Kyle Shanahan can do to a team if he knows what you're going to throw at him. I do think that one part of the game that I underestimated was, Eberflus, for all his problems as a head coach, was still a defensive game planner and a defensive head coach, and the Bears didn't have that now because he's fired. So that clearly affected their defense. They looked awful yesterday, awful in every phase. So I was talking about getting the bump from the interim head coach, and I think I took my eye off the ball. I should have realized that there would be an effect on the defense there, not having Eberflus, and I should have pointed that out. That's my bad. Like I said, I never promise 100% accuracy, right? I promise 100% authenticity. I missed that one, and I'm sorry, and I'll try to do better for you in the future. Vinny V says, since you're not doing under review, just watch the opening play. Brock throws before Juwan Jennings breaks for his out route. Yeah, and I think, honestly, that sort of timing and anticipation is why they haven't been able to hook up with Ricky Pearsall that much. Brock had Pearsall open on a deep ball. He is open, and it is a touchdown if Brock puts the throw where he's supposed to. But Brock thought Pearsall was going to take it more upfield. Pearsall was going to just kind of continue the direction he was going across the field. And so it looks like a bad throw from Brock. It really was just a miscommunication, essentially. Brock even said after the game, it was on his fault. He said, it's my fault. I didn't throw the ball in the right spot. Ricky was flattening it out, and that's where it should have gone. But, Brock was trying to adapt in the moment, and Ricky, I think, was kind of just going where he was supposed to go according to the play. Those little things that need to get worked out and communicated, usually in training camp in the preseason, but obviously we know the story with Ricky Pearsall, and then the shoulder injury, and then the robbery attempt and the shooting and all of that stuff. So why he wasn't there. But Brock has that knowledge and anticipation with Jennings. It's why he's so comfortable throwing it to him. It's why sometimes I think he throws it to him even in spots where he might not necessarily be the most open guy, because he knows, right? He has that trust and that faith, and it shows up a lot. And I think it showed up with Jennings on Sunday, and I think it showed up with Pearsall as well. Let's see. I want to read some of your other comments. Oscar says, notice at least 3 or 4 deep passes where Brock underthrew the ball. Play a good team, and those are interceptions. Would love to see Kyle Shanahan and Brock find a sweet spot in regards to how deep he should be passing. I'm trying to think of the underthrown. The one to Guerendo was a little underthrown, but remember, that's a blind throw. So Brock is dropping back. The blitz is coming. He knows where Guerendo's going. He just kind of lobs it up. The one he threw to McCaffrey on the same play was a perfect, beautiful throw placed perfectly. The one to Guerendo was a little underthrown. I also wonder, too, if Brock is not used to throwing to somebody as fast as Isaac Guerendo. Guerendo's faster than Christian McCaffrey. Isaac Guerendo ran a 4.33. And again, they have not had a lot of time together, right? So maybe Brock just underestimated the speed of Guerendo on that play. Again, when you're playing all these inexperienced guys, like little stuff like that matters. And I think it matters more for Brock Purdy than other quarterbacks, perhaps, because so much of his game is built on timing and anticipation and knowing where guys are going to be and trusting where guys are going to be. The good angle I thought was that, hey, Brock's throwing to Isaac Guerendo. He's throwing to a running back. He's throwing to the checkdowns, which is something that he has not always done when Christian McCaffrey hasn't been in there. Guerendo was okay as a runner. He had 15 carries for 78 yards, but he had a long of 30. So that 30-yard rush is doing a lot of work in his yards per carry average. But he had 2 catches for 50 yards, and they were both around the 25-yard mark. One was 27, so, do the math for the other one. He hit Guerendo, and Guerendo took off and was able to capitalize. But if the Niners offense is going to stay on schedule, they're going to have to continue to hit the check down and hit the running back. And I think that Kyle now maybe is like, you know what? He might not be as good a route runner as Christian McCaffrey. He's not as good as a route runner as Christian McCaffrey, but the speed, if I can get him in space, you put him in a position to just blow people away. And you saw it. It was one run that Guerendo had yesterday where he sort of gets hit a little bit and he just takes it to the outside. Brian Baldinger actually had a really good breakdown of it. And there's just like, he froze it at the perfect moment where you could see it's like, here's the moment of truth. Either the defender is going to tackle Guerendo or Guerendo is going to have the speed to get around him. And Isaac just accelerates and completely destroys the angle, takes the corner, and takes off down the field. I think that might be something that gets more and more design looks from Kyle Shanahan. Not like, hey, we're going to have Guerendo in the slot running a choice route against the linebacker, but hey, we're going to design looks for this guy out of the backfield because we think his speed is so damn good. Again, I think we're going to see Kyle adapt as the season goes away and goes here these last 4 games. I know some people like to think he doesn't adapt, right? He's cooked. The league's figured him out. His offense is easy to prepare for. You can't audible. All these BS narratives that popped up. Just another example of it. And you could say it was the Bears. Show me another game this year where one team has outgained another team by 300 yards in the first half. Guess what? You can't. I don't care who that's against, right? The Panthers have been an awful team for a long time this year. Nobody did that to them. Nobody did that to anybody else. And there are a bunch of bad teams this year. The Jags, take your pick. Nobody did it to anybody else. So you could say it doesn't count because it was the Bears, but the Bears have been playing teams all year. So I'm just throwing that out there when you want to talk about Kyle Shanahan, he's cooked and we should trade him to the Bears and all that stuff. No. Thought it was funny that Kyle was specifically asked about those rumors and he shot him down. And I thought his point was a good one. Like, hey, I like it here. And more importantly, my family likes it here. And that ain't nothing. You got kids, you've got a wife, you're affecting their life if you move around. And it's not like, Kyle Shanahan before where he was a young coach starting out. Like he's gotten paid by the 49ers. He's gotten paid multiple times by the 49ers. He could live anywhere he wants to on the planet. Happy wife, happy life. And as a parent, I speak from personal experience here. I have 2 kids of my own. You get to a point where your kids' happiness is more important than your own. So even if Kyle Shanahan didn't want to be in San Francisco, and he does, but even if he wanted to leave, if his kids and his wife were happy, guess what? He's sticking around because that's what you do when you're a father and a parent. Baziman says only Grant Cohn and his minions were pushing that angle as realistic. Well, that's not totally true. Mike Florio brought it up, but not as a Kyle Shanahan wants out. It was more of a, why aren't the Bears considering other coaches in their coaching search? I think that was Mike's point. Like, hey, you can trade for a coach and maybe you can pry Kyle Shanahan from the 49ers if he's looking for a fresh start. So that is sort of how that thing picked up steam. But I agree, it was mostly Grant and some other 49ers content creators. I know Ryan Hensley has been very vocal about his non-attachment, let's call it, to Kyle Shanahan. I think I've been a Shan-a-stan, as some people say. I've been a Kyle supporter. Again, not forever, but certainly not this year as a year you would want to get rid of him. And let's say they go 9-8 this year. Like, you're going to tell me that he should be fired if they go 9-8, even if they miss the playoffs? That would seem to be very, very strange. Rads Rips says, people don't say Shanahan can't beat lesser teams, though. It's the biggest games that he gets questioned. I mean, again, he's won multiple NFC championship games. His playoff record is fantastic. He's the first coach in NFL history to win multiple playoff games in his first 3 appearances in the playoffs. Like, this team gets to the playoffs, they don't lose until they get to the conference championship game. Every time. Again, that's not something that every coach does. And you watch, if the 49ers got to the playoffs this year, people would be saying, oh man, watch out for the 49ers in the playoffs. That's a team nobody wants to play. So I know that he hasn't come through in the Super Bowls, but again, there are Super Bowls, which are the biggest of big games, but there are also other big games. And more often than not, in big games, Kyle Shanahan is really, really good. Like, really good. Like, win a conference championship game only throwing 8 passes good. Another thing I haven't seen anybody else do. Rob Johnson says, I personally think they need to keep Deebo from lining up in the backfield. Ain't fooling nobody anymore. I totally agree. Like I said, it's just bogged down. And you could tell Deebo's getting mad too, because after the game, he barely said 2 words. He was short with the media. I mean, we're talking like 3-4 word answers to questions. And these are softball, just lobs from the 49ers media because it's after a big blowout win. And he clearly was not happy. And when you're not happy after your team's biggest win of the year to keep your playoff hopes alive, it tells you that something bigger is going on. And maybe we never find out what it is. Maybe we find out what it is next year if Deebo gets traded, right? What do I always say to you? When people feel safe, the truth comes out. Well, if Deebo gets traded in this offseason, people will feel safe about talking about what happened after he's gone. So maybe we might have to wait a little bit to figure out what it was. But I think clearly something is up, whether it's an injury, whether Deebo's not happy with how he's being used. But to see his responses to the questions after the game, and again, a huge blowout win, tells you that something ain't quite right. Wedge Antilli says, I'm an outlier. I think the front office should give Brock Purdy the Mahomes deal. 10 years at 15% of the salary cap. I would also defer a portion of the salary, but I'm not the front office. I don't know if you can. I don't know what the hell the deal is with like deferred money and all of that. I know that Juan Soto just signed a $765 million deal with no deferred money, which is crazy. I want to worry about the Brock Purdy contract after the year. Can I do that? Like, this offseason is going to be crazy interesting for the 49ers. It's going to be interesting from the contract perspective of Brock Purdy. It's going to be interesting from a roster turnover perspective. It's going to be interesting from a draft perspective because the 49ers may have a higher pick than they've had in a long time. Certainly, they're probably going to end up with a pick at least in the middle rounds. And so there's going to be plenty of draft speculation as well. I don't want to worry about it right now. Nothing against your question, Wedge. But I feel like we've talked about it a lot. And I'm just in a good mood because the 49ers won. And they looked like the 49ers team that we have come to know and love. And I tweeted this yesterday, and it's true. You know, they used to do this like all the time to everybody, right? Like, this is what it was every week. It was like, 30 points again. And what would we say? They didn't even play really well, and they still put up 30 points, right? Like, they used to do this all the time. And I told you at the time to cherish that and to appreciate it because it doesn't last forever. And we saw it didn't last for huge portions of this season. Hopefully, it's here to stay. Kenny says the blemish on Kyle's record is he's like 0-9 against Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar. Yeah, please tell me who has a good record against Patrick Mahomes other than like Josh Allen and maybe Joe Burrow. Like, nobody beats the guy. Hell, we saw last night. I mean, God, the Chiefs go down. Matthew Wright is kicking for the division. Dong. He hits the upright. Ball still goes through. Like, oh, my God. You know, I just keep thinking of that Breaking Bad meme. He can't keep getting away with it. Apparently, the Chiefs can. Mahomes is really, really good. The Chiefs, to their credit, are an execution team. They have done what the Patriots did with Brady and Belichick, which is in the critical moments, they know exactly how to manage them. They know exactly how to manage them. They know how to play them. They know how to execute them. And they do every single time. Like, was there any doubt when Mahomes got the ball back that he was going to go down the field and get them the points they needed? No, because in the critical moments, Mahomes knows what to do. Andy Reid puts him in a position to do it. He's got that sixth sense with Travis Kelce where they can always find one another. You know, they make you wrong no matter what you do. They roll out, they put the ball in Mahomes' hands. He can make any throw to anybody at any time, and he can run. And the other part of it too, he's actually really hard to tackle one-on-one. I don't know what it is about him, but he's not an easy quarterback to bring down. So when you combine all those things, he will find a way to make you wrong. He'll dodge a blitzer like he did last night. And then when other guys come up to tackle him because he's a yard away from waiting to getting the first down, he just waits and he throws to the guy that's uncovered when you rush him, which usually ends up being Travis Kelce. And that's exactly what happened. There's no shame in not being able to beat Patrick Mahomes. He's really freaking good. Okay. Obviously, you want to, and you might need to win a Super Bowl, but I can't be like, well, you're not a good coach because you're not good against the greatest quarterback of his generation, who's already a Hall of Famer, by the way. Like, if he retired right now, he's already a Hall of Famer. Baziman says Deebo isn't playing like he has in previous years. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out later he's been dealing with an undisclosed injury. Exactly. Oscar says, I think what this team needs in the coach's locker room is a prodigy offensive coach, someone who's as aggressive as the Lions staff, someone like Brunell or their pass game coordinator. Well, if you're talking about the game management decisions, I agree they need to get more aggressive. And to Kyle's credit, he actually went for it on fourth down twice yesterday, which, yes, please. Thank you, Kyle. Keep that up. See, it can work out for you if you do it. But in terms of like, if you're expecting like somebody to come in and teach Kyle Shanahan offense, it's not going to happen. And again, it doesn't need to happen. They just put up 319 yards in a half. Okay. Like the idea that Kyle Shanahan needs offensive help, that's not where he needs help. Where he needs help is the game management stuff. Baziman says Jared Goff is undefeated against Mahomes. Okay. How many times has he played him? Is it one? Come on. Kenny says Patrick Mahomes is the greatest third down quarterback I have ever seen. Yeah, he's really freaking good, man. He's really damn good. Law of All, says Lions and Packers couldn't score more than 23 points against this not legit Bears team. Putting up the most points on the Bears this season after almost winning against the Lions says something. Look, the Bears lost 3 straight games against the NFC North, the best division in football, by a combined like 7 or 8 points. They were hanging tough with the best teams in the league. So you can say it doesn't count. What they did Sunday doesn't count because it was the Bears. All right, but like we've seen the Bears play better in recent weeks. So I'm not saying, again, that everything's perfect now and they're going to continue this role either. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying it's okay to enjoy it. It's all right to be happy that they kicked ass. And maybe it's okay to think that that might continue going forward. Now, maybe it won't. Maybe they get their ass kicked on Thursday. I mean, the Rams look really good. That offense is absolutely humming right now. Puka Nacua is out of his mind. Cooper Kupp can still make plays. Matthew Stafford, this just in, is still really freaking good. McVay's a good coach, man. Maybe they get killed against the Rams. I'm not telling you that they're going to blow the Rams out. I'm just telling you I have hope now. I have hope, a little bit of hope. And I know Ted Lasso says it's the hope that kills you. That's okay. I'm ready to be hurt, man. If I can't even hope, then what's the point of watching? And you know I'm going to be watching. So I'm going to hope for a little bit. And we'll see if some of these younger players can step up. You know, can Pearsall and Purdy find that chemistry down the stretch? Can they establish that now so that in 2025 it's there and they can really start to cook together? Yes, the playoffs would be nice this year as I sort of bring everything full circle. That's cool. Playoffs, great. Of course you like that. But at the bare minimum, you can establish the core for 2025. So that's how I look at it. That's the bare minimum I want from the rest of the season. And if the playoff happens after that, great. Let's take that ride together. Let's go on that ride. It'd be awesome. And hopefully we can, and hopefully we can go on it together and we could all enjoy it. Heineman on Twitch says the Rams are the underdog. Yes, they are by a couple of points. Bosa playing. I don't know. That's another thing, right? What if Greenlaw comes back? What if Bosa comes back? Okay, now all of a sudden the defense looks a little bit different, right? A little bit more exciting. Be perfect timing for both of them to come back against the Rams. That could be a huge boost. So again, if you can't be a little bit excited, I get that you don't want to be hurt again. But really at this point, like, would it hurt that much? Their chances, even if they win out, their chances of making the playoffs are really slim. So it's not going to hurt that much if they don't get it, because I don't really expect them to do it. But they could. And until that possibility is extinguished, I'm going to be hopeful for it. And I hope you will too. You know, If you want to be miserable, there'll be plenty of time to be miserable, for sure. Ute now says if Kittle gets 10 targets a game, we got a good chance. I agree, man. And good for George. Speak up, man. Keep it up. And you could tell after the game, he was asked by, I think it was Grant that asked the question, who said, like, did Kyle get the message? And George took a very long time to answer. And he was kind of like, well, I try to be available all the time. But I have a feeling like at some point, George probably looked at Kyle in the locker room and kind of gave him like a, see, like, hey, still really good. Just, just a reminder here. I've come through for you again. And hopefully Kyle just feeds him down the stretch, man. Let's go. Matthew Raleigh, thanks for the super chat, says the Bears are one of the only teams still running a base cover 3, which is what Kyle's offense is built to beat. The game may show Kyle has been unable to adjust to new defenses. Thoughts? I don't. It's crazy to me that, like, we're sitting here after they put up 38 points and dominated, and we're like, this is actually a bad thing. I'll never think that's a bad thing. And again, I know that doesn't mean that they can do this to every offense, but they did it or every defense, excuse me. But they did it to the one they faced on Sunday. Great. And it's not like the 49ers haven't put up a lot of points against other teams this year, too. They haven't done it every week, but, they put up 32 against the Jets in week 1. They put up 30 against New England. They put up 36 against Mike McDonald's Seattle Seahawks, who McDonald gave them a ton of trouble when he was in Baltimore, right? Are we forgetting that? They put up 30 on Dallas, So it's not just one type of defense that they can do this against. They may be better against this type of defense than other defenses. I can't dispute that. But let's not act like it's the only kind of defense where it's the only time they score 30 points. That's not true either. But I do appreciate the comment, as always, Matthew, and I appreciate the super chat. Baziman says the Bears defense was actually well ranked. They weren't scrubs. They had been playing pretty well. Like we said, they had limited some pretty good offenses in recent weeks, right? We saw them play the Detroit Lions. The Lions scored 23 points. That's not a bad offensive output, obviously, but it's not like, otherworldly. The Vikings put up 30 in overtime. The Packers only put up 20 against them. So they've been holding some of the best offenses in check. And they couldn't hold anything on Sunday. That was a beatdown, man. That was just enjoyable. It was nice to just exhale a little bit, right? Watching a 49ers game. It was so nice because they finally played complementary football. Offense scores, defense gets a stop. Offense scores again. Defense gets like, yes, this is how it's supposed to function. It was nice to see, and hopefully it sticks around. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Again, it was just a short show. I had to get a couple of things off my chest, and I wanted to do a stream because Vish and I weren't going to be able to. Like I said, I'll be back later tonight, 5:30 Pacific. Levin and I will do our full Week 14 NFL recap. Hope you join us for that as well. The Monday Night Football game stinks this week. It's Cincinnati and Dallas. Who even cares, right? Don't watch that. Watch us. Come join us, and we'll talk about the whole week writ large in the NFL. Please like and subscribe to the Gold Standard 49ers podcast, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. If you want more 49ers talk, I'll be live with Michelle Majuk at 1 p.m. Pacific on the Bleacher Report app. We'll be breaking down the win. It's just a Bleacher Report exclusive, though, so you got to go into the Bleacher Report app if you want to check that out. But we will be live again 1 p.m. Pacific time today, so I do hope you join us for that. Enjoy your Victory Monday, everybody. Go damn Niners.